It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, he wrote a book called Return to Order. That's an interesting book. His name is John Horvat II. He's a scholar, he's a researcher, an educator, international speaker, and author whose words have appeared worldwide. The book is called Return to Order. Folks, I haven't had the opportunity of reading the entire book. From what I understand, it's an exciting book. It's something that I think all of us should be reading, particularly what the contents is about. John, first of all, thanks for coming on my show.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about yourself, John, a background on you.
Well, I'm originally from Kansas City, that area, and I've went to the University of Kansas for a couple years, and afterwards I joined the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property. We're a civic organization of Catholic inspiration. And since that time, I've done a lot of research, studies, I've traveled about, and I developed this book as a result of the studies I've been developing over the years.
So let's go back in history a little bit, okay? You know, you graduated, okay, from where?
University of Kansas.
Okay. All right. So now something had to happen in your life, okay, to start looking at, writing this book, because this wasn't written in 2 days. Okay?
Right.
There's a lot of research that went into this book. And that's why I think it's great when people read it, they're able to see a lot of background. So what happened in your life? What did you see? Because, see, sometimes when I get guests on and we start talking about God and stuff like that, they get nervous, okay? Oh, it's one of those religious things, like we're saying something bad, okay?
Right.
But yet when we're sick, pray for me, let's go to church, let's go to our synagogues, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's how hypocritical we are sometimes in our society. But staying with that, let's go back to why you, okay, decided to do what you're doing, because you say things that Hollywood doesn't like, you're saying things that Planned Parenthood doesn't like, you're saying everything that is, all the secular wackos out there do not like what you're talking about, okay? But yet we should all spotlight what you're talking about. We would not be in the situation in this country we are. Now, I'm editorializing, I'm sorry, but tell me about why you decided to do. What did you see in your life, what did you see in the country that made you decide to do a book like this?
Well, the crisis in our country, not only is the financial or economic crisis, but it's the moral crisis, especially in the time when I first started doing this work in the 70s and late 70s. The moral crisis itself, I really started thinking about, well, we need to do something against the moral crisis, the problems that we see in society, the youth in society, the lack of dealing with God, of the godlessness of our society. And so I joined the TFP because of that, and I got specifically involved in this particular project. It was actually an invitation by a Catholic thinker by the name of Professor Plínio Correia de Oliveira. He's a Brazilian. And he invited me and several other Americans to study economy. He said, well, the United States is one day going to suffer a very great economic crisis, and I think the best way to respond to that is to study Christian organic society. And as a result, I started studying this in 1986.
Okay, so what you learned then? So he's telling you that the economy, study the economy, all right? And so people say, well, wait a minute. What does Christianity or what does morality have to do with the economy, okay? Because you have the sciences out there, people saying, natural disasters and all this stuff are happening. It's all science, okay?
Right.
Not that the fact that we're aborting millions of people and God saying enough's enough, that they don't mean about that. And God forbid we should talk about this because they get nervous, okay?
Right.
See, I deal with these hypocrites every day in my profession, all right?
Exactly.
They just make me sick. So what does the economy have to do with this Christianity book?
Well, what you see in economy today is a lack of restraint, and it's frenzied and it's out of balance. And what we need to do is go back to the fundamentals of family, community, faith that normally serve to keep economy in balance. They're the things that keep economy from getting out of control, like we have today. And that's what Return to Order is all about. It's a book about our future. We look at the present economic crisis. We propose real solutions based on timeless principles.
So what do you see, what did you see when you were doing this research, okay, as a serious crisis, okay, in the country today, okay, for that matter, the world, all right?
Right.
What did you see?
Well, what we have today is something that I coined a term in the book, and it's called frenetic intemperance.
Frenetic
intemperance.
Yes, I looked at that.
And frenetic intemperance describes why we've become a credit card economy. You know, this idea that you must have everything now, regardless of the consequences. This is something you see in the present-day economy that's dragging it down, and that was what prompted me to really get involved in this study, to say, well, how can we take this frenetic intemperance that exists in our society and bring it back to balance?
This is interesting because you're saying this frenetic intemperance unleashes certain processes that have proven harmful to modern economy.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're saying, explain that again, what that intemperance is.
That frenetic intemperance is a sort of a restless spirit inside economy. I have nothing against the economy that has private property, free enterprise, where you make money, you make a profit, but this sort of irrational spirit that sometimes enters in and destroys free markets and harms communities and creates monopolies.
What do you think is the cause of that? Greed? Selfishness?
That definitely enters into it, but I think it's a bit more than that, this idea that we have to destroy restraints, any type of restraint. And so we already destroy moral restraints, but now this idea, well, economic restraints as well. And so we get involved in businesses that really don't make sense from a business point of view as well. I'm sure you've seen things like
that. And I'm smiling because I'm thinking about, the fact I'm in the media, all right? Yes. And probably, I think the media is probably could do so much great good and also do so much great harm, okay? And when you look at, we talk about family traditions. And in northeastern Pennsylvania, as well as many other states and areas, when you had the traditional family values and you had to be accountable and families got together at least, 3-4 times a week for dinners or lunches or weekly dinners. I know, being Italian, we would get together with all our relatives every Sunday, and you missed those times. But there was a development process there, If you were a Catholic, you went to Mass. If you were Protestant, you went to church. If you were Jewish, and you went to your respective things, and there was a value there, okay? For some reason, Hollywood and the current president of the United States feels, in my estimation, especially his support of Planned Parenthood, and his wife, who is for abortions, and he is for abortions, you start looking at substance in life, okay? So, and they call me that they're saying, well, get off my tangent because it has nothing to do with the economy. I think it has everything to do with the economy. I think your book is saying that.
Absolutely. I mean, the family is the basic social unit of society, but it's also a basic economic unit. Because the family is an ideal school of temperance. It teaches about duty, responsibility, balanced consumption, balanced production. I mean, if you want to return to order, there's no substitute for the family. It's as simple as that.
So why do you think, John, okay, you being the expert, okay, why do you think the country is changing so much to secularism and wants to take God out of everything? Because, again, the Democrat platform had 2,600 whatever words in it, not one word of God.
Right.
When they wanted to insert God back into the platform, could you imagine the Democratic National Committee booing God?
Absolutely.
Okay, not everyone, okay, but a majority of them booed God, okay, and people still say, especially Catholics still say, well, we'll vote for this, okay?
Yes.
And that's the thing that just drives me crazy. How hypocritical can you be in life if you are seeing them destroying your own values and you're saying, let's have more of that?
Right.
You tell me that. Straighten me out, because maybe I'm off the tangent here again.
No, I think it is exactly that lack of restraint, that desire once you've tasted that lack of restraint, the natural tendency is to want ever less restraint, and not only from the point of view of morals, but the point of view of economics, from the point of view of politics, from the point of view of God. And God is the ultimate restrainer because He puts 10 commandments there for you to follow and to have in mind, to complete.
So you wrote a book and you did something. Would you want your family to read this?
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anything you ever in your life you did that you would not want your family to see?
Well, I mean, everyone who's sinned in his life has...
No, I'm talking about in things that you've done in writing a book or delivering speeches or whatever, that you would say, I would want my daughter to see or my son to see.
No, I mean, that would be a criteria for me to do whatever I would do.
I'm getting to a point when I say how crazy and how wild and how off you have professional actors, okay, who star in certain movies, okay,
right,
that are disgraceful, and they'll tell you on the Tonight Show, or they'll tell they'll say, "No, look, I'll never let my kids go and see that movie," but they produced that movie.
Right.
See, so I say to myself, well, how hypocritical can you be? If you know you're destroying the moral value, you won't let your kids go and see that, but it's okay for other ones who are 18 years old to see all the destruction of morality. Folks, I'm talking to John Horvat, who wrote the book Return to Order. Now, for those of you who would like to see more about this, March the 3rd, 11:30, top of the 80s, he's launching the book, or signing the book. Hopefully we come back, we'll learn more about this book. It's something I think that everyone should get, read, and digest. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, anyone who has opposing viewpoints on anything I discuss, I welcome you to come to on the Sam Lesante Show. Hey, Planned Parenthood, where have you been? Since 1994, I've been asking people to come on from Planned Parenthood to tell me why you should put little feet apart when they're 10 weeks old. And all you wacko liberals out there, how come you don't come on my show to tell me why we should continue to do what we're doing and destroy God, destroy our morals in the country? You know where we're going. The author of this book called Return to Order, John Horvat, is here. And he wrote this book. And you said, John, it took you a while to, how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, I've been involved in these type of studies since 1986. And then basically on and off basis, according to my schedule. But in the last 5 years is when I've really developed a very intense study schedule where I devoted literally thousands of hours and read many, many books. And I would get together also with a commission twice a week where we would thrash out these issues and just really talk them over. And as a result, Return to Order came from all these efforts.
So, looking at some of the outlines that I'm looking here in the summary of the book, the missing human element,
yes.
Okay? And what is that?
Well, what's happened to modern economies, we've taken the human element out. It's become very cold and impersonal. You see many times you talk to machines and you're not able to really get in touch with the people that make the thing, to talk to them, to develop an economy that becomes very warm and human. It's what I call in the book, I say what we need to do is get away from a rule of money and to what I call a rule of honor. That means where you're treated like a person and not a number, where you give value to excellence and quality, where people see what they do as a profession and not a paycheck. You see some of this in the military. The military, they do what they do, not for the money, but for the honor. And what we say in Return to Order is that that honor is much more important than money. Character is much more important than capital.
And here again, it's interesting that you should say that, because when you start looking at our society today and start looking at where we place our values at, it's funny, you'll talk to some people and they'll tell you, and the seniors, or maybe I was talking to a senior 75, she said, I'm concerned about my Social Security. I'm not concerned about abortions. I'm concerned about how much money I'm going to be making on my Social Security because I have to live, Mr. Lesante. Abortions I'm not concerned about. Okay, so, and look, to a degree, the people are suffering and they're having a difficult time, and I can understand that you have to exist. But how do I get that person who has that kind of mentality saying, well, look, the moral character here, what does that have to do with them? How would you answer that person?
Well, I mean, the idea that people have is that by getting away from morals, you become more efficient and more cost-effective and all this kind of things. But I think it is a mere short-term benefit, that morality is the best safeguard for an economy. That if you live a moral life, you're going to have better conditions to fulfill your functions or whatever you need to do to live, to exist, and that this idea of immediacy, short-termism, everything that you see in modern economy tries to give the opposite impression. But over the long term, a return to order is the best solution.
So that brings you to the development of the concept of organic Christian society.
Yes.
I like that, organic Christian society. Okay, what is an organic Christian society?
Yes, an organic Christian society is a society that's based on human nature itself. It's a society that's full of natural leaderships and social ties. It's one where you're not treated like a machine, but an actual person, where it's very strongly rooted in community, place, and family, and it's very inspired by Christian principles. Organic Christian society is our answer to frenetic intemperance. To say, well, this is what we need to get back to. If you want to fight frenetic intemperance, have an organic Christian society.
Okay, Mr. Horvat, I understand what you're saying. Okay, and I understand that you know that our family should be getting together. But Mr. Horvat, it's very tough times today. Okay, yes. My wife has to work. I have to work. My kids have to work. I'd love to have these get-togethers, but I can't. I only wish for the best, okay? And so what am I going to do, okay? I cannot do everything that my father and mother and my grandparents did. Right. I'm living in society that I have to pay my bills. What do I do?
Well, I mean, we have to look at the alternatives. The country's divided. The economy's breaking down. Our Congress is gridlocked. I mean, the force of the circumstances the circumstances are forcing us to look in this direction. We have to look at the directions of principles, of quality, of temperance. We're being forced in that direction because the alternatives, it's not a matter of if we're going to change. We are changing now to a socialist economy. We need to discuss the other side of the question, that of a organic Christian society.
So then, you're a Catholic, okay, and there's Protestant, in fact, the sad thing that I've researched is that probably more Protestants are pro-life than Catholics. Wow, does that drive you crazy?
Right,
okay?
Right.
And particularly with our cardinals, our bishops, and our priests. I mean, they got to be pulling their hair out. Okay, when you have a Catholic who is saying, "I'm voting for this person, even though I know they're for abortions." Okay, that's the lunacy I see. Okay?
Right.
How do you react to that, John?
Well, I mean, of course, I would be very. These Catholic principles are the basic ones I discuss in the book, and I would hope that the Catholics would be the first to embrace them. But what we're talking about is a framework of principles that are applicable, that come from the very nature of man, and they are applicable to all times and all peoples. The principles I'm talking about are not, anyone can apply. Religion definitely has its role, and a very important role. But let's face it, an economy without order, without temperance, without virtue is doomed to fail. It's as simple as that.
We see it today, time and time again, that the role of the family, okay, is they want to destroy that.
Absolutely.
Okay, and for what reason, I don't know, but it's scary. Okay, because I have grandchildren, and I pray for them every day. Because and the young people today who have children who are 10, 9, 8, or in their teens should be very concerned. But you know what they're concerned about? Their SUVs, their money, their parties, how much I'm going to get, do I get this, do I have this? And religion has nothing to do with it. In fact, I don't even think sometimes they find the time to take their children to a particular place of worship.
Right.
And they just feel it's either the golf games or it's the soccer games, etc. And that's what we become. And then they want to know why we're in a crisis, okay?
Right.
And so a person like you who has so much experience, and I respect, and that's why I like to ask you, because am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. Absolutely not. I mean, the mere fact that a person doesn't sense the crisis, very palpably, does not mean the crisis doesn't exist. And I think to the extent that the crisis worsens, and it will worsen, and it is worsening, more and more people are going to start thinking and saying, well, what are the alternatives? And when they see the very scary alternatives of a socialist agenda that are appearing on the horizons, again, we're going to see people looking to the other side, looking for a return to order, because order is the primary need of the soul. Everyone has to have order.
And that's what scares me. I'm afraid that when it happens, it's going to be too late. And I'm glad that there's people like you, Jose, who comes on with the Fatima and are trying to, and even a lot of my Protestant friends who are there, and Jewish friends are out there saying, look, we have to keep this, in order here. I'm always a firm believer in dealing with people who have substance, John. You need to have a substance in your wife. If you have a family man or in a home who beats his wife and beats his kids, but outside he's the nice guy, okay, watch out, because if he's beating his wife and kids up and you think he's a nice person or she's a nice person, you have another thought coming, okay? Folks, I'm talking to John Horvat, okay, the second. He wrote the book, Return to Order. Now, how do we get this book?
You could get this book on our website, returntoorder.org.
Returntoorder.org.
Right,
okay.
returntoorder.org.
As well as subscribe to this book or get the Crusade book, folks.
Yeah, if you just put a request in for Crusade magazine, you'll get this Crusade magazine that describes the book in a very succinct form, and so you can.
I would hope that no matter what religion you are, that they would get the book, okay? And you have every opportunity, folks. March the 3rd at the top of the 80s, 11:30. He'll be there signing the book. You can ask him more questions. But we have a lot more to discuss when we come back after these messages. Stay with us. The book is called Return to Order, folks, and you can see the author of this book, John Horvat, at the top of the 80s, March 3rd, 11:30. John, in conclusion, what would you like people to get after they read this book? What would you like to have them get out of this book?
Well, there are two things. First, I would like to incentivate people to a type of leadership, a moral leadership in society. What we need in society today is what sociologists call representative characters. And these are people who of natural leadership. They're out there. They're the statesmen, the businessmen, the teachers, religious, military, people who you look up to, people who are able to take what the community needs and translate it into concrete action, people who sacrifice for the common good. We need these type of characters in our society today. That's what will uplift a society. Modern culture promotes unrepresentative characters, the Hollywood stars, etc. We need to promote the opposite.
It's a tough road.
It is.
It's a tough road because you're really beating a very serious liberal press out there, liberal media.
Absolutely.
I've noticed sometimes even with news broadcast, okay, when a person's interviewing someone, if they mention, like God, okay, you'll notice that the person won't expand on that. They'll move to another subject, okay? Right. And I don't know why that is. Why do you think we're so afraid to mention God in our lives? Why do you think that is? That when you start talking about God and religion, no matter what it is, Protestant, Jewish, etc., you start thinking, well, wait a minute, why do you think that is? But they'll open a Playboy magazine and show everybody what. Right.
No, it's this lack of leadership, a lack of people. If people see leaders who are very assertive of what they believe and have no shame of God, I think it would incentivate a lot of people just to likewise do so. But when they see on the television this culture of atheism, this culture of depravity, and that's the only thing they talk about, they feel inhibited because they just don't want to be they don't want to stand out from the others.
As a researcher, developer, and a person who has a lot of experience whom I respect, and I thank you for coming on my show, what do you tell our viewers as to why some kind of religious substance is so important in their lives, no matter what religion you are?
Well, I would say that we need, a return to order definitely has as its component a religious reawakening. There's no other way. There's no other motivation inside men's soul than that of God. God is what moves men beyond his self-interest. And so a return to order necessarily is a return to God. And in this case, we mentioned a return to the Blessed Mother.
Here again, I really appreciate you coming home, and I want to thank Jose for bringing him to my attention. Folks, returntoorder.org, okay? Phone number you can call is 570-582-7678 for more information. You can also get the magazine Crusade. No matter what religion you are, folks, it's so important to think about this. How many times in your life, folks, you've dealt with people And the first thing you want to know is what kind of reputation they have, and especially if you're going for an operation, you want to know as much about that doctor as possible. You want to know as much about the substance of that person as possible. We should also be doing that with our people in their lives, find out what kind of substance they have. And to all of my friends out there who feel that pro-choice is the way to go, I pray for you every day. We'll see you next time.